I'm here with Lukas Liebich. We know each other through the AJSmart Workshopper program, and we're together at the Workshopper Retreat. I was just wondering if you would introduce yourself, Lukas. Tell us a little bit about who you are and what you're up to.
Okay, I'm Lukas Liebich. I work for MSD, which is a big American pharma company. I work as full-time facilitator and design thinker, and I love doing workshops.
So, when you're doing workshopping inside of a large organization, what are some of the opportunities that enable you to facilitate and use your workshopping skills? What might be a recent example?
So we really get to do different kinds of workshops. It's not just pure design thinking, but often they're strategy workshops or alignments. And I think in big organizations like ours, there's always, let's say, risk of misalignments between different teams, between different organizations. And workshop is a great tool that allows people to talk things through in a way that involves everyone who needs to be involved.
So for a large enterprise thinking about bringing in facilitation and workshopping as part of the way you bring together a cross-functional team, is that what you're doing at the moment?
Mm-hmm. For example, it's one of the examples of the workshop. So one of the things we did that we have, there's a team in our organization that has the task to promote the use of blockchain technology, different use cases to use blockchain in the pharma industry. And that team needs to collaborate with different local markets, and because in the pharma industry, every market is very, very different because it's a regulated industry. So one of the things we did, we facilitated collaboration between the team that was promoting blockchain and our local team in Israel. They were working together. They were trying to find which of the blockchain solutions would really help the local Israel team.
So if they didn't have a facilitator, what would be some of the challenges that they would face, and what would motivate an organization to spend money on the overhead of having an additional person working with those teams?
I think, let's say, the extreme kind of meeting is one-to-one meeting.
Yes.
Two people having a conversation. That does not necessarily need structure. People usually work it out.
Yeah.
The workshop that we facilitated was, because I'm saying we because it's usually me working with one or two co-facilitators.
Okay.
We work in teams. The audience was much bigger, so there were, let's say, 10 or 12 people from the Israel market, and then there were maybe 5 or 7 people from the blockchain team. So when and also it was online, so like all these things that were making it more difficult. And without a facilitator, without a plan, without the end point in mind, and without the planned steps for the conversation, I'd experienced attempts for things like that. But then the conversation is really just a mess because there is no clear way for every single person to contribute. Very often it's the loudest people or the higher up people who take charge of the conversation.
Yeah.
So sometimes conclusions are achieved, but many people are not involved. And that's the better case. The worst case is that there is nobody who has the, let's say, responsibility, who's willing to take charge, who's willing to accept the responsibility. So in the end, no decisions are achieved. And then that's a big problem because then the project doesn't move forward.
So it sounds like not only are you ensuring that people have a voice, but you also ensure that there is a decision made at the end, and therefore the cost of having you there as a facilitator is easily paid for by the fact that you do get results, that you do actually enable everyone to be heard, that otherwise that just wouldn't happen.
That's true. So I think the teams that are working with us, because we are an internal team, so it doesn't actually cost them anything. I mean, our work doesn't cost them money. They need to pay for our travel costs if we travel somewhere, of course. But so there's a lot of ways how it's not just about us saving time, because without us they would probably spend much more time discussing, but it's also the solutions are simply better because there's like more ideas that are taken into consideration, and there's more, let's say, what we also provide in the exercises that we do to provide some stimulation or allow people to take a different angle or consider a completely different angle than what they considered before. But there's always also a clear path towards making a decision, towards making choices. So in a way, it is not predictable what what solution will the group come up with, but it's predictable, let's say, what shape of the solution, what kind of solution it's going to be, and also when the solution will be done, which is very, very hard to do if it's not designed.
Yeah. Do you feel there is a benefit to being an internal facilitator as opposed to perhaps being an agency that is coming in providing external facilitation services?
So the benefit I see there for myself as a facilitator is that I can see what the follow-up looks like.
Yes.
So for me the feedback loop is complete because we finish workshop and then there are some solutions proposed, some ideas proposed, or maybe some plan of action. And then it's easy for me to check in. I try to do that with the team 3 months or 6 months later and say, hey, remember how we did that workshop together? So how is it going now? What stage are you in implementing the solution? And sometimes it is progressing and sometimes it's not. Sometimes after the workshop actually nothing happens.
Yeah.
But it's good for me to know about this because then based on, I can ask also why didn't you start implementing the solutions, and they can tell me, oh, because this and this and this happened, and the next time I do a workshop with my team we can try to figure out a way how to avoid some of these obstacles that was implementing it.
Yeah, so that gives you a greater sense of context and continuity to be able to see something from beginning all the way through to the end. That sounds really helpful. We're often an external agency, you get different people that come each engagement and there's not that same handover of understanding the culture and the context behind something.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about some of the feedback you get from people who are involved in the workshops. Some of them are perhaps experiencing you many times, some for the first time. What are some of the highlights that stand out for people when they go, this is the difference that workshopping has really made compared to the way we used to work by ourselves in the past?
Well, I mean, I think the extreme case was, say, in the lockdown years, 2020 and 2021, because then for many people it was completely impossible to imagine any kind of collaboration online. Right, so there where we had the tools, we were one of the teams that was introducing Mural to the company, and we had the structure how the collaboration can happen. I think that often the feedback people are often shocked as this was even possible, but that's an extreme case. But even for the in-person collaboration, what people are usually surprised about is that how things are done in time, how we can manage it, because it's not like that, because often people have the experience with this, even the off-site or leadership meetings, if they schedule it for a full day, that either it goes 2 hours over,
Yes.
or they just manage to do like 30% of the agenda because they're just like they dive too deep into one of the topics in the beginning. So yeah, the timing, the results, and also we also try to do it like fun.
Yeah.
So we try to respect the needs, the ability to people to pay attention for a certain amount of time, so do the breaks frequently enough, and yeah, so I think they're not maybe as exhausted as they would be in an ordinary 3-hour meeting.
Yeah, so more enjoyable, more efficient and more effective way of working together to collaborate and come up with results rather than just spend time and maybe go in circles and be frustrated.
Yeah, we're definitely trying to achieve that, and I believe that we're doing quite well.
So if an enterprise hadn't got to the point where they had internal facilitators, what would be a good starting point if there was an enterprise saying, you know what, I really like what Lukas is sharing here about internal facilitation, we'd like to start having that happen at our enterprise. Where might they start? What would you recommend?
Okay. Maybe the first thing I would recommend is to identify a couple of people who would be interested to educate themselves in the topic. Now, these people, they do not need to become full-time facilitators, but there should be like the points of contact for if they want to, let's say, outsource this kind of service, they can definitely do that. But it's really important to have somebody who at least kind of gets what is it that should be about. And that person can then manage a relationship with, let's say, the agency who is going to facilitate this workshop. So that's maybe the first thing. And the second thing, identify a project or activity or maybe a team that would benefit from doing this. Start small, test the waters, see how having a workshop, how it works for somebody in the company.
Yeah.
And then possibly try to go bigger scale. What I would not recommend is starting with some big bang, huge design thinking workshop for 50 people because that's just like too big to manage, and very often. I mean, I know that some consultancies offer this kind of workshop, but just in the morning we had this session where we heard this term, which I really like, was the innovation theater, which is, it just looks like there is a design thinking workshop, but in fact it's not. It's just like not everybody gets involved because there's too many people.
Yeah.
And it's like theater for leadership because they see there's a lot of stuff happening, but actually the results they're not probably as good because it's just, I mean, it's hard to achieve something in a big group like this where people do not have experience with design thinking.
Yeah, it's fascinating that you share that, Lukas, around avoiding the problem of innovation theatre and beginning small with some people that you can train up to be able to begin doing facilitation of something that may be a low-risk project that's a good starting point to get quick wins, to demonstrate success, and to then be able to have something to share with others to inspire them. That's really great advice. You talked about that innovation theatre being one of the things that stood out for you from the talk this morning. Are there other insights that have started to show up for you during the Workshopper Retreat? So there's just too many. I cannot name them all. But another thing that I really enjoyed this morning is, as part of the workshop, there was an activity. Yes.
And so whenever I attend a conference or an event like this one, I always try to not just think of it as me as being participant, but think of what are the things that I can replicate, let's say in a workshop or training that I'm going to give, be it for people in the company I work for or to external clients. And I have to say, I really loved the exercise we did today. I really enjoyed the task of trying to understand somebody's needs in terms of health and fitness, trying to understand their needs, trying to come up with a proposal, try to test your solution, and then building a prototype. The exercise was clearly structured. Maybe if you can link to the exercise in the video, maybe it could be interesting also watching the video to give some hints. Or maybe not, we'll see.
Yeah. So, the exercise this morning, it was well structured. It gave people a chance to learn by doing.
Yeah.
And that sounds like that would be a really nice way to have an enterprise that's thinking about design thinking, begin their journey. And for the future, where do you see yourself going as a workshopper? If you were to think about, in 1 year's time, what are the things that you would be working on to develop yourself as a facilitator and a workshopper?
So one thing that I'm working right now in MSD is trying to look for ways how to create, let's say, a system to onboard new colleagues or to onboard colleagues quickly to allow them to become facilitators quickly.
Okay.
Because I think on one side is, of course, to be a good facilitator, you need to have experience.
Yes.
But on the other side, I'm really convinced that having a good system, having a good structure, having a good, let's say, basic set of exercises, in a way, having a good, let's say, elementary curricula, but having the right things that you give someone who's new to the trade, that you give them to learn, can really accelerate everybody's process. And you can have a co-facilitator. What I tested, like in 2 weeks or 3 weeks time, you can train up somebody who never facilitated before to be a really good co-facilitator, somebody who can help you while running a workshop.
Yeah, well, that sounds like an interesting opportunity and a great value proposition to be able to take, again, to an enterprise wanting to start out, is to come with that package of rapidly onboarding someone to be able to become a useful facilitator.
Yeah.
Hey, well, thank you so much for your time, Lukas. I've really enjoyed our interview, and all the best for the future, and I look forward to us spending more time together throughout the Workshopper Retreat.
Thank you. It was a pleasure talking to you.
Likewise.